in this lecture, we're going to talk about how to set up your project for your internal self-portrait. So the first thing we're going to do is open up Photoshop, and we're going to go to a new file. So when I click on new file, I get my dialog box, and I'm going to set it up as a internal self-portrait. And then I'll say RD for rough draft. Okay. Then I want to make sure I'm on inches, not pixels. And I'm going to make it 20 inches by 20 inches. So this format is square. So it's going to be 20 inches by 20 inches. I'm going to leave it at 300 pixels per inch. And I'm going to put it into CMYK color because it's going to go to print, right? So I could make it in RGB and then convert it later to be printed. Does anyone know why, what the difference is with RGB versus CMYK? Besides red, green, and blue, and cyan, magenta, yellow, and black? Anyone? Thoughts? Charles?
RGB is the light spectrum colors.
Correct. So there's millions of those, right? But how many man-made colors are there? Human-made colors would be a better way. Thousands, definitely not millions and millions. So what happens then, if you start off in RGB, is the computer then tries to find the next closest color that could actually be made with ink or paint or whatever the pigment is that you're using, right? So if you start off with CMYK, then it already starts to give you alerts like, hey, this isn't printable. Like this would look good on a screen, but it might not work in a print. Does that make sense to everyone? So that's kind of why you want to start there, at least for now. We're going to have a transparent background. We're not going to color manage, and we're going to just say create. So there's our image. Let me zoom out a little bit. So there you can see that it's a perfect square. Now, one of the things that we talked about a little bit when we took the Illustrator class, those of you that took it, but maybe not so much here, is we always want to think about, we want to make sure our rulers are on. So in this case, our rulers are on. You'll notice that it's Command R or Control R is the fast key to turn your rulers on. And so the way the rulers work is that up in the corner here, I have these guides. And if I pull these guides right up to my image, like over to the corner, what's nice is I've just moved the 0 point. So now if I go over to here, I can see, oh, look it, I'm right at 20. Does everyone kind of see why that might be beneficial? So that way you can kind of decide, like, if you're going to create your own guidelines to make sure you're not going to be outside the borders of where you want to be, this is a really nice way to get started. So you always want to just go up here, click and drag. And if I move it, watch, if I just move it over to here, now I've moved the 0 point to there. It's like you can just keep moving it. So I'm just going to go right to my corner here really nicely. And now I'm right, first I'm right at 0 on the edge of my paper. So I'm 0 vertical and 0 horizontal. So what I want to do is I want to bring two guides out. I want to have one at 10 inches vertically. So I'm going to find my 10-inch point and drop it. And then I'm going to come down and do the same thing here. I think that's at 10. It looks like it is. And I think I'm good. And I'm going to find 10 inches here. And there I am. So now I've kind of figured out where my quadrants are going to be. Because remember in this project that you can only use, you can only put type in 2 quadrants. So that means one of these 4 areas, but it specifically says you cannot put it in the first quadrant. So that means no type of any kind should be up here in the corner, right? Now I'm doing this on purpose because I'm trying to get you to think outside the box with regard to how you're designing it. Normally, when we read, like we read a paper, and you write a paper for a class, where do you start? Where do you normally start reading? Shaylin? Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh, start reading in the top left corner.
Yep, top left corner. And we read from the top left corner and we read across. So we read left to right, then we come back down and do the rest. So normally, when we're looking to read something, our eyes are automatically going to be riveted to that upper left corner. Now, here's an interesting thing about reading. I bet none of you have ever thought about. Once you've learned how to read, you truly learned how to read, you can't not read. If there's a word in front of you, you can't say, not reading that. It's like you can't not do it. You're like gonna do it because you know that it's a communication form. It's really interesting how our brains work. So when we go up to that top left corner and there's no words there, it automatically shifts our view around. Think of this design as a stage. So where are we putting the light? Who's the character that we're lighting? Well, it's not up in the upper left-hand corner where we expect it to be. So right away, we're like, uh-oh, not where we think it's supposed to be. Where is it? And then we automatically kind of have a little endorphin rush there. Like something's happening. We got to figure out what's happening. And then we see, oh, the word's down here. The word's down at the bottom. Or the word's over here in this corner. Or maybe it's over here, right? So that automatically engages us in a way because it's not expected. Why do things engage us when they're not expected? Where do you think that comes from? Gabby, where do you think that comes from?
What was the question again?
Why do we get more engaged when something happens that's not expected? So say, for example, you're sitting in the class, right? And you're working on your color theory project and somebody walks in and you thought you were alone. What do?
Probably just be really surprised, be like, hey, what are you doing here?
Yeah, well, and you don't say that, but you kind of think it, right? So like the first thing you're going to do is look at them and say, oh, do I know them? Are they safe? Are they supposed to be here? Is it a friend or a foe? This is survival stuff. This is very, very ancient stuff as part of our brains. So designers use that information. We know that there's certain areas that we look to and have expectations towards when we read anything. So if we don't put it right there, that means it automatically is not what we expected. It alerts us to look elsewhere, and it creates a very small kind of like, uh-oh, what's happening here? And it's like a split second, but it engages us in the design. So anytime that you think of it like a game. How do I get somebody engaged to actually pay attention instead of letting their mind drift or do some other thing, right? So when you see a big, something that's completely like a poster and the type is at the top and there's 100,000 words in it and there's no pictures, how often do you stand there in the hallway and take time to read it?
Definitely would not read the whole thing.
No. It would be like, wait, what? What is that? Oh, I don't even care. I'm busy. I have something else to do. I have to move on. Right? I mean, they say our attention span when it's something that we're not really interested in is about 3 seconds. It's like we just go on. 1,000, 2, 1,003, move. If we don't see what we expect to see, we automatically just leave. Right? So that's kind of the way we want to think about this. Okay. So we can't put any type in the first quadrant. We only can use 2 quadrants. So that means if we're going to have a really big piece of type, it's got to be somewhere at this median line or down. Now, what's the other thing that we know about design? Sorry. What's the other thing that we know about, like places that we put like an important image in the design? If it's it's right in the very center of the image. Is that as interesting as if it's off to the side? What do you think? Claire, what do you think? I'm sorry, you're going to have to speak up.
I didn't hear.
You didn't hear the question?
No.
Okay. So if you put something right in the middle, do you think that's an interesting design concept to put something right in the middle?
Here, I would probably go right to it.
You would what?
Here, I would go right to the center and not look around.
Right. So basically, it's kind of like when we look at a human face, we see it's kind of equal. Like we have eye and nose, mouth, right? So everything's like proportion. So we don't really look at each half. We just sort of know it's there and we move on. It's like a mandala. If it's like a symmetrical design, like everything's right in the middle and it just sort of moves out, we don't have to examine it. But if things are asymmetrical, if they're not right in the middle, if they're somewhere off to the side or someplace different, it gives us another space, like kind of interesting look. So if we stick our word right smack dab in the center, it doesn't really give us a lot of, engagement. So what we want to do is have it either in the like upper third or lower third, something like that. So we want to think about the thirds, just like in a photograph. Okay, so let's go moving forward. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to fill this whole image with a color. So let's do that. So we're over here in layers. I'm going to make a new layer like so. And I'm just going to go Command A or Control A. And when I do that, I want to be on here, my selection. And there I can see when I'm on my selection, because I've hit Command A or Control A, I've selected all of my pixels. So now I can go up to Edit and I can go to Fill. So when I go to Edit Fill, I get a little dialog box. And in this dialog box, I've got a lot of different things going on. So if I click on where the color is, that's my content, you can see that I can use my foreground color, my background color, or a color. So before I do this, let's just cancel. And let's go ahead and click on these colors and change them. So I'll just pick a green, and that'll be my foreground color. See, I'm over here. And then I'll pick maybe a violet, and that'll be my background color. So there they are, right? So if I go back here to fill, because I'm still hot, notice I still had the little marching marquee here. So if I go to fill, and I pick my foreground color, and I say okay, it'll be that. If I go back to fill, edit, very simple stuff, but if I want to pick my background color, say okay, now it'll be that, right? If I want to pick a new color, I want you to see this. If I go to fill and I just go to color, I get my color picker. This does not change the foreground or the background. They stay the same. So if I go here and I pick this blue, and I can see, I'm going to, just for the heck of it, I'm going to say I'm going to use this blue throughout. So what I'm going to do, just to kind of remind myself of this blue color, what it is, I'm going to look at my hue, saturation, and brightness. And I'm going to write those numbers down. So I'm going to say 206, that's my hue, right here. My saturation is 77%. So because I'm not directly to the edge, if I were over here, watch what would happen. See, now it goes up to 98. If I'm way over, I can almost get it to 100. I'm at 99. So I'll go back over here. Oh, look, I was pretty close. And I can change these numbers too. So I can just go 77. And then over here, my brightness. So this would be, notice now I'm at 3, right? So I was at what, 80 something? So, or 70, 75. I guess I was it's around 75. So I'll say it's there. And notice now this changed too because I moved it. So I'm going to put it back to 77 and I'm going to leave that at 75. Okay. So now I can see that I'm at 206, 77, 75. And I'm just going to write that down for myself. So my brightness is, how far up it is. My saturation is how far it is from the 100% point. And my color is depending on where this is. So if I scroll this around, notice, look what's happening. Oh, and remember what I told you before about being in CMYK? Look at this. See this little triangle up here? That's telling me this color is too bright. It's not going to print well. Don't use it. So I'm going to go back up and go back into my blues again. And I think I was somewhere in there. So what was I at? My color was 206. And so I'm at 202. There I am. So see how it showed me my hue? So I can keep the same saturation and brightness by leaving that circle there, and I can scroll up and down that rainbow stripe, and I can pick any color, and that way I know I'm going to be in the same value range. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay, so let's go ahead and pick that one. And now it's there, and I'm going to say okay. So now I've got that color. All right, let's just make a new layer for a quick minute. If I go back here again, and I want to change this color, all I got to do is go to fill again, and I double click the color. And now I get my color picker again. Notice that the whole time my foreground and background did not change. So if I want to make this another color, let's go in the violet range and say, oh, that's too bright. So let me come down a little bit. It's not liking it. So I'm going to have to move it down a little, I think. Over. Yeah, it's really not liking it. See, and the reason why is because it's telling me I can't get this color printed. But we'll just do it for the heck of it. So now I've got the two of them. See that? Okay. I'm going to turn that off. So now at this point, I can start to bring in imagery, right? So I want to open up an image, and I want to show you how to make a duotone out of that image. Right? So I'm going to go to File, Open, and I'm going to go and pick a image. So remember her. There she is again. And we're going to make her into a grayscale. You have to make your image into a grayscale before you can make it into another duotone color. So you'll see what I mean in a minute. So if I go to Image Mode, put her in grayscale, and discard all of her color, at this point I could maybe do some adjustments, make her brighter, whatever. But now I'm going to make her a duotone. So watch this. If I go here to duotone, I get a little color picker here. And I have to, I've got some other colors that I had from before. So if I click on this, I get the colors that I want. So what do I want to do? I'm going to go back in and put my 206, my 77, and my 75. And then I'm going to say, okay. And it won't let me out of here until I name this. So I'm going to call this blue. And I'm going to get rid of this. I want to get rid of it. Cancel. Not really sure. Oh, that's because it's in tritone. My bad. So now if I want to give this a color like black, right, which I had before, I can come down here, notice, and I can go into my black. So now I would have black and blue. See what happened to my image? Yeah. So now if I say save, okay, I can file, save as, and now I could save this file as I'm going to put it into my folder for my duotones, and I will just call her blue duotone. Okay, so now she's saved as a blue duotone. So do you see how I did that? And it's really nice. And it's like a nice way. And the reason why do people do that? Because back in the day, there was a lot of cost, like when you had more than one color. So like if you had more than black or white, and you maybe had a spot color, like this might be the spot color, like a blue, you only paid for the one run of that color. When you had like all the colors, CMYK, you had to pay for the thing to go through 4 different times. So it was very expensive to do big printing. Now that we have digital printing, all the inkjets are filled with all the colors, and it's way, 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 way cheaper, right? But this is still a style that people like, right? So if I'm going to bring her in, I'll just go ahead and go back to my original, And then I'm going to go to File, and I'm just going to deselect, and I'm going to just dump out that purple because I don't really want that. So I'm going to delete that, layer 3, and then I'm going to place my image. So I'm going to say File, Place, Embedded, and I'm going to find my blue duotone and say Place. And she's kind of small, but that's okay for demonstration purposes. Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to drag her out. Oh, and what do I want to do before I drag her out? Let me just cancel that. What do I want to do before I drag her out?
Make her a smart object.
Thank you, Charles. You get an A. A for the class. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and place embedded and bring her back and say, okay, place. And now we're going to go up here and we're going to say, maybe we have to accept her at the size she's at because we don't want to, distort her. And then we're going to go to convert to smart object. Okay, now we can move her around and make her bigger and smaller. See, I'm going to kind of keep her over there. Okay. So this is how you would begin, right? Trying to find your image, trying to find the way that you're going to work with things. So let's say, for example, you want to put some graphic elements in here, right? So you might bring other things in. So I'm going to go ahead and make another shape, another layer. And I want this layer to stay where it is. So I'm going to hit this layer, and you'll notice up here you have some locking modes. We haven't talked about that too much, so I'd like to talk about that now. So the first one is lock transparent pixels. So that means I can't put anything on anything that's transparent. That's what that's for. I very seldom use it, but it is usable. This one is locking the brush. So the next one over is locking the brush. The next one is you can't move anything. This one is preventing any nesting. So I can't group anything over there. And the last one is locking it all down. So I'm going to click locking it all down. Now the only thing I'm locking is that layer. So she's locked. So if I try to move her, nope. All I can move is what's underneath her. So that's interesting because I didn't click on the blue, did I? I clicked on top of her. Well, that's because you'll notice up at the top, there's this area here called auto select. So if anything's locked above, it won't select, but whatever's underneath, it will select. So that's kind of interesting. So if I lock this bottom layer, I'll lock that one too. Now, nothing moves. See that? I can't move anything. But if I put something on this layer, I will be able to move it. Okay, so let's say I want to take this layer and drag it in between my color and my person. Now this is not transparent. So I can make things and fill them. So let's say I'm going to grab my rectangular tool here and I'm just going to make a shape. Okay, and I'm going to fill that. So I'm going to go to edit, fill again. And you'll notice that it still has that color hit. So if I double click on this and go to my color, I don't want that. I want to go back to what was my numbers? See why I wrote them down? So I want to get something close. So I'll say 206 again. And 77 and 75. Okay. And notice that it's showing me web colors. That's fine. But I'm going to move this color now and I'm going to make it darker. So I'm just kind of moving it right sort of down from where I was. So I want this back at 77 and I want this at 206. So I want the same hue. Okay. Oh, it's going back to 100%. Oh, that's fine. And I'll just say, okay. And now I'm going to fill it. And notice that now I get that color, right? So this becomes a movable shape. So I'm going to deselect it, Command D. So now I've created a shape, right? And I can alter this shape. I can make it taller. I can make it skinnier. If I hold my shift key, I can make it like a thin line. I can copy it. Command C, Command V. Now I have two of them. Command V, make another one. So in no time at all, I'm starting to kind of develop a design. You see that? So let's say, and I can go on and on. Notice that every time I made a new one, did you see what it did? It made a new layer. So let's say I want all of those on the same layer because I want them to stay together, right? How could I do that? Well, there's a couple things. I could hold my shift key and click on the first layer, second layer, third layer, and I could go here to my more bars and I could go to link layers. So now they're linked. So now when I move them, they move together. Okay? So that's pretty cool. Or I could do this. I could merge. So let me see where that is. Or maybe I think there we are. So I could merge layers, and it only merged the layers that I had highlighted. So now they're permanently merged, right? If I hit Command Z, they'll go back while the file's open. Once I close the file, then they're merged. Not going to come back out, right? So let's say I want to put them in a group. This is another way to keep them together. So right now they're linked, but see down here I have this little envelope. That's a group. So if I click that, notice I don't see them anymore. And now I could call these blue lines. And then if I twirl this down, there's my blue lines. So as long as I'm moving the group around, I can move them around and put them wherever I want in my design. I can copy them, Command C, Command V. I only got one, notice that? And notice that it went in my group. And notice it's not linked. So I would have to link them again. So I'd have to go grab them all and then go here to link layers. Now I linked them. Okay, so you kind of see how that worked? So that's a really handy thing as you're building design elements. So let's say I'm going to do another design element. So I'm going to close the group of blue lines. I'm going to make a new layer. And this time I'm going to add a circle. And if I just pull it out without holding my shift key, I automatically get a circle. And I'm going to fill it. So I'm going to go to Edit, Fill. And this time I'm going to make it white. So if I go here, I also have these other options. I have black, 50% gray, or white. So I'll make it white and say OK. And notice that I had blending options. So Command Z. Let's try that again. And this time let's use our blending modes just for the heck of it. So this time, instead of normal, I'm going to go to, I don't know. Oh, let's try behind. This is interesting. See what happens. Nothing. Because it's not on the same layer. If it were on the same layer, it would have put it, like arranged it behind whatever else was on that layer. Really interesting. But let's try it again. So we're going to go back. And this time, we're going to go to, let's go to Overlay, Soft Light. And we'll say, OK, nothing. OK, let's try again. Maybe because my layer's locked, I don't know. Let me try again and see if I can't get something more out of this. Go to Edit, Fill. Oh, and I know what I need to do. I'm going to drop my opacity too. So I'll go to 60%. And maybe I'll try color burn, see what happens there. There we go. So a little bit more going on. Now, I'll deselect it, Command D, and I will just drag it around to wherever I need it, right? I can make it bigger, holding my shift key, or not even holding my shift key. Notice that it's on top of her. So, so let's put it under her. So now I'm starting to develop kind of an interesting design. Does everyone kind of see how I did that? And now you could put glows on there. You could do all the kind of other crazy stuff that we did before. So now let's say I'm going to start to put some type in. I'm not like, this isn't the most amazing design ever, but it's not horrible. So let's figure out some type. What could that look like? So maybe she's going to talk about travel. So I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to grab my type tool over here. So let me drag this off. I don't like it over there. I always like having it kind of close by. So I'm going to grab my type tool, and I am going to go to horizontal type tool. Notice you have vertical type tool, you have type mask tool, and you have a horizontal type mask tool. We're just going to use the regular type tool. And we're going to click over here, and notice that it came in at whatever I had done last. So notice that like the last time I worked, I used Helvetica New. I was in condensed bold, and I was at 96%. And so notice also it's going to come in with my foreground color most likely. So I'm going to probably want to change that, right? So before I do it, let's just hit Command Z and get out of here. Let me just grab that and hit delete, because I don't want that. So if I'm over here and I say, I want this to be like this color. If I am on my color picker and I move off, it automatically goes to my eyedropper. So I can pick a color. So let's say there's a color in here that I like of her, and I want to use that color. Notice that it just moved to her. If I go here, it's going to move around. If I go to this one, it's going to pick. So it's kind of in a green. I'm not loving that. So I'm going to go back to I don't want it to be in that, in that green color. So I'm going to change my foreground color to my other color that I've been using. So cancel. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to be on my foreground color and actually cancel. I'm going to go to my picker, which is somewhere. There it is. And then if I click right on it, it automatically gets blue. So now if I go to my type tool, or if I go to here, like let me go to my background color, saying cancel. I'm going to flip these two. And now I'm going to go to my picker again. And now I've got that color. So if I go to my type tool, it'll automatically go to my foreground color, whatever it is. So if I want to switch it, all I got to do is use my double-sided arrow. Click, click. Or I can hit the letter X on my keyboard. The letter X just automatically flips them back and forth. If I want to go back to black and white, I hit the letter D. And the letter D automatically takes me back. And I won't Command Z back. So I'd have to repick it, which I will do right now. So I'll repick my blue and flip that and then repick that. So that's how quickly you can move colors around. And there's even more that you can do, but for now, this will be fine. So now we'll hit our text tool again and click. And now we're going to write travel. So we're going to do a thing about travel because we love to travel. And I'm just going to go ahead and grab the corner and I'm going to drag this out. So I want to keep it in one of these. So maybe something like that. Okay. So now I'm kind of getting somewhere. And then maybe I'll say, okay, just for the heck of it, I'm making this up on the fly. Let's go ahead and grab our and let's look at our browser for a second, and let's see if we can find some statistics. So statistics on Americans who traveled overseas in 2024. What do we got? Okay. So it looks like 38% travel internationally, 85% will travel out of state. Well, 90% plan to take a trip, 85 will travel out of state. For some, trips aren't all pleasure, as 1 in 4 will be traveling for business. So there I have some kind of interesting statistics on travel. So maybe I'll take some of those and I'll use them. So I'm going to go grab my type tool again. And this time I'm going to, I think I'm going to use that darker color. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my eyedropper again. And this time I'm going to go to my foreground color and I'm going to get it that dark blue. And I'm going to go back to my type tool and I'm just going to write 2024. And I want it to be above this. And it looks like, what happened there? Why did I lose it? Oh, I know. I think I know why. So see the color up here? It remembered the color that I had. So I need to change that. And hopefully I should be able to cancel. I should be able to double click that and get that color. So see, now it's changed. See how I did that? So I literally just had to highlight it and then go double click on the clicker up here. So these are things that can really confuse you. So that's why I want to kind of go through them. And I'm going to drag this out and make it kind of bigger. Maybe it's a little too big. Okay. And I'm kind of having fun with like my lines and where I'm putting things and, you know, like that. It's kind of interesting. And then I might go ahead and start putting in some of my statistics. This is not a difficult problem, right? Once you kind of set on it, and you know what you're going to talk about, it's just a matter of finding the right images, pulling it all together and bringing it in. Now, do you want to use another color? You can bring in another color. So if we would look at the color wheel right now, we could say, oh, well, let's see. Let's just do that really quickly. And let's pull up a color wheel. So if we look at blue, kind of that blue I'm using, and we come across, we're probably going to look at like a red-orange. So, you know, maybe I want to bring a red-orange in here. So what would that look like? Something maybe in there. Too dark. That one's maybe okay. Okay, so go ahead and let's make another shape. And I want to make my own layer, and then maybe I'll edit fill. So I'll go to edit fill, and this time I will fill it with not color burn, normal. I'll put it at 100%, and I will go to my background color and say okay. And then I can drag this around depending on where I want to put it. And also remember, once I deselect it, it's on its own layer. It has its own bounding box, so I can go ahead and have some fun with it, right? And so I could maybe start putting some of my type in orange to like go along with it. So like if I wanted to, if I go grab my type and come over here, I can change it. Okay, so this is kind of how I want you to get started. Don't get too stressed out about this project. Save it as a PSD and keep working on it. It's going to be a lot of fun, not difficult, right? So I'm going to stop the video for now. I think we went through quite a bit, and I think it gives you a good idea of how you can start to play. Think of this like a big puzzle. Like, where am I going to put what? So let's say, for example, I say, oh, well, I want to, let's unlock her and grab her, and I want to transform her. You know, I can go in and transform her image, right? So I could, you know, rotate, skirt, whatever. I could flip, right? So, I mean, I don't know if I like it that way, but you can see what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot you can do here. Okay. And we can bring her back on underneath the word travel. Maybe I kind of don't like that, you know. I like her better the other way. So I'm going to Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, and put her back. I like her. One of the things that you'll notice is when you have people in your image, if their eyes are looking off the image, your eyes are going to look off the image. So let's say like Charles and I are sitting, we're having a very deep conversation. He's telling me something very personal, and I'm like going like this, and I'm looking over here and everything else. And you're like, what is going on? I'm trying to tell you something, and you're looking up over there. Our eyes will look to where the person we're talking to, where their eyes are going. Because whatever it is, it must be important. That goes back to that whole like fight and flight thing. And it's like, then we got to go look too. And you've all experienced it. So this is a big mistake that students do, is they'll have the eyes going off the image, and then all this becomes irrelevant because the eyes are going off the image. So the direction of the person, especially a person, an animal, anything like that, should be like coming in and at the person who's the viewer. So I hope this was fun, and I hope you learned some things, and I'm going to stop